Will you please stand and join me while we honor our country and state flag with the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I have a Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
I think Mitchell did that because we could get.
Thank you very much. Item 3, is there anybody signed up for public comments? Nobody at all, okay. Item 4, consider an act request for adjustments. Mike, is there any requests?
There's a request that was presented last month, if you remember. Customer called, had a leak. A customer called our office, wanted to know if their meter was showing a leak. We identified the meter was not showing any abnormal usage, any high usage. This particular customer owns 2 lots and has his own personal water well. So we believe the customer believed he had a sprinkler leak. That's what his water well runs. I've got our superintendent here, Randy Edwards, in case the customer showed up, which he indicated he was going to be here, in case there were any questions about what happened in the field. We believe the customer took it upon himself to dig up a wet spot in his yard, thinking it was his sprinkler line. It turns out it was our service line. It was not going through his meter, which is why we didn't show we had a leak. He sent us a bill for his efforts to find, quote, our leak, and he wanted to be reimbursed. And we discussed it last month. The board declined to act on that. I informed the customer, and he said he wanted to come today to talk to the board in person. I don't know where he is.
Okay, well, we ruled on it last month, so we don't have to take any action on it, correct?
Correct. Okay, I'll let him know.
Okay. Before I move off that, he did say he was going to send emails out. I never received one.
He said he sent an email to your address, Bob's your address, and Hartley's address. That's all emails he had. It was from your newsletter that you put out.
And I never received an email.
I never did. I checked last night before.
I'll send you what he sent me. I was copying. I'll send it to the whole board.
Okay.
Okay, just want to clarify one thing. He didn't ask us to come out at all. Once you told him that.
He did not ask us to come out. No,
And so he took this upon himself.
If his meter showed a leak, and his house meter did not show a leak, any kind of continuous problem. So
Okay.
we did not.
What is your recommendation?
My recommendation is to deny the claim.
How much is he asking?
$12,500.
$12,380.
Okay. All right, thank you. Consent agenda. Do I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda?
I so move.
I second.
All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Regular agenda, item 9, receive the regular monthly SJRA report.
I do not have anything to cover under item number 9, but Aaron does have a presentation on number 10 if you want to move to that.
Yes, that'll be fine.
We also have Dan Hilton here, who y'all know, and he'll be giving also part of the presentation. But go ahead and turn the light off, Randy, if you would, and cover the projector. Yeah, don't decline it. But my name is Aaron Stendewolf. I know several of y'all know me, but there's probably some that don't. I'm a project manager with this Sandstone River Authority, our technical services department that covers and serves all the different operating divisions of the River Authority. But the presentation I'm going to be giving today is about the updated 10-year project plan for the Woodlands Division from the period of 2025 to 2034 fiscal years. We revise this every year. This, like I said, is a 10-year plan. Key focus of this presentation will be an overview of primarily the projects that are either ongoing, will be continuing into FY25, or ones that are about to start. And before I get going on that, I'm going to be handing out a copy of the presentation. Oh, you want to do it, Dan? and also
Are we
the
gonna
10-year
have
project
them
plan.
now? I already
Mr.
got,
McIntosh probably already has one. from last week.
I have one of each. Thank you.
So as you can see, it's a fairly large binder. That's the one that contains all the projects for the 10-year period, all the detail, all the budgets, all the schedules. But, you know, for this presentation, I want to talk about the projects that we're either ongoing, we're going to continue in 25, or will be starting in 2025. But an overview of the presentation, we'll talk about the overview of the Woodlands Division, what the level of service that's expected and we understand will continue to be, then into how projects are developed, the projects themselves for FY25, and then an overview of the budget, both for 25 and then the total 10-year period. So first, just an overview of the Woodlands Division itself. Total amount of assets, which are larger components, or, you know, water lines, sewer lines, all those different things, manholes. Total amount of those assets in our Woodlands Division is over 8,000 in scope. We also have all the little minor components, you know, capacitors, you know, different switches, things of those natures that we don't consider assets because they're easily replaced. But when you get to the bigger items, we do have 8,000 assets plus. Which have a replacement value of roughly $2 billion. Now, level of service over the years, we've been told and we've provided award-winning facilities, no to limited disruptions in the service for both water and wastewater. We've had one boil water notice over the past 50 years, and that was on the customer side of the sample site, not even in our system, but we had to report it. But our understanding is that you'll want to continue to have a system that's reliable, and when you turn the water tap on, water comes out clean, it smells good, it tastes good. And when you know, water goes down the drain, you want it to go down the drain and not come back on you. So out of sight, out of mind. How projects are determined? Well, we have a comprehensive asset management strategy, both in a plan format, also in a enterprise asset management system software where work orders, where corrective maintenance is captured for all these individual assets as it occurs. It keeps track of the money that's spent on those assets, the remaining useful life of those assets, and what the criticality of those assets are, both in terms of condition and also what if they fail, what is the result of that failure. Also, we have studies that have been occurring, and I'll get to that in a second a little bit more. And also, when regulatory changes do occur, we have to address those in the project plan with projects that have to occur to keep us in compliance. As far as those studies are concerned, over the past few years, we have done numerous studies. Here's an example of 5 of them that probably make up about 90 to 95% of the projects you see in the project plan. Ranging from the ones that cover the new wastewater or water reclamation facility and wastewater improvements, to water wells, to water system assets such as the AC water lines and ESTs, water wells, gravity lines that are not addressed in the part of the optimization project, and then wastewater facility number 2, which is, you know, different than the water reclamation facility we've been talking about, where ongoing maintenance and projects need to occur to keep that system and facility in operating condition. As far as the total 10-year project plan, the main key projects, big ticket items, are the water line evaluation renewal, the new elevated storage tank, and on the wastewater side, the new water reclamation facility, and the optimization of that collection system to that new water reclamation facility. So first of all, and I want to go into those, you know, those projects like I talked about that are either started and keep going into 25 or about to start in FY25. So starting in September of this year. So AC waterline condition-based assessment. This is a project that was requested and approved. A budget was approved when the vote came in and approved the excess funds to be used for this project. But this is a project that'll be going and looking at all our AC, asbestos cement water lines, doing data analysis, field and laboratory testing, both in a destructive manner and a non-destructive manner. Also looking at the socioeconomic impacts of when you have water disruption, what can that cause in your community and what are the costs of that? But that will result in a prioritization of water line replacements, both by location and then also accompanied with the scheduling and those cost estimates for those projects. But the cost of this project is $1.6 million and anticipated to be completed in July of 2025. But that's a map right there of all our AC water lines. Next project, and this has been previously approved, it's ongoing. This is to take 5 lift stations, which are just upstream of where the new water reclamation facility will be, and taking those offline to then convert what's a pump system to a gravity system, much simpler system, much easier to maintain. And you'll have one main gravity line that'll go from just upstream of where you see lift station 5 there to the new water reclamation facility. A study has shown that over about a 35-year period, you would have a cost savings by taking that operation and maintenance costs out, renewal costs for those lift stations and the force mains they have out of service. You'd save about $30 million over that time, plus just the small ongoing O&M maintenance costs that you have, electricity, replacing pumps as needed, things of that nature. But also you will hopefully alleviate, I should say, odor and noise issues that could occur with lift stations by taking them out of service and abandoning them. Elevated storage tank number 6, also previously approved. And let me mention that most of these projects have been in the project plan for 1 or 2 years at least, if not more. So just mention that as well. But this is a preliminary design phase. We have been under variance because we are under capacity for elevated storage. And to meet 6th and final accounting requirements, we do need a new elevated storage tank when that variance expires. So this elevated storage tank we built in the northwest corner of the Woodlands. Also, it helps with additional demands when you have them, such as fire flows and high demand periods during the summertime. And it alleviates risk if you have another elevated storage tank nearby out of service. If you have a fire or something like that, you take away the risk of, losing elevated storage capacity and drying up the system. South Shore gravity main rehabilitation. You can see the condition of these lines from that photo at the top right. But it's also underway. It's in the final design phase. But this is for the rehabilitation of the system directly just north of that lift station 5 that we talked about in that previous project. But this is to rehab about 6,700 linear feet of 42-inch and 36-inch ductile iron pipe in those areas you see, and where the colorized sewer lines are shown on the map. Wastewater facility number 2, tertiary filter improvements, also a project that's been previously approved and underway. Previously, this is a 3-filter system at wastewater plant 2. Currently, we need all 3 filters to handle the permitted peak flow. However, when we put in rehab basin 3 previously, we were able to find out that replacing a sand filter, which is what those 2 that we're going to rehab currently are, with a cloth media filter, you can triple the capacity of those filters. Also, the O&M costs are much less. By doing this also, we can take one basin offline then in the future and not have to worry about busting our permit or having to not be able to filter all the effluent water that comes through the plant. But this project does not change the permit capacity, just to make sure you're aware of that. Lift station number 1, gravity main bypass and decommissioning project. Project we identified that allows us to take another lift station out of service, separate from those other 5. This is also connected to that South Shore project. Originally, when this lift station was put in place back in 1975, a force main went down to wastewater plant 1. However, that force main has heavily deteriorated. And in lieu of replacing that force main, which crosses under Woodlands Parkway, and keep the lift station operating, we're able to divert the flow from the lift station or upstream of it by gravity over to a 42-inch line, which was installed in the early 2000s, and alleviate the need for ongoing O&M costs for that lift station, ongoing renewal costs. So just a apples to apples comparison, placing the force main would cost about $2 million, and you'd have to do future renewal costs and have those ongoing O&M costs, whereas putting in a new gravity main costs about roughly $1.5 million. So definite cost savings right then and there. Water plant generators. So this applies to 3 of the 5 water plants that we have in the Woodlands Division. This is a water plants that were built primarily originally to handle groundwater and have storage and treatment on site or chlorination. They now also receive surface water that's piped in from Lake Conroe. But 3 of the water plants, primarily when we have a power outage, have to operate off of these auxiliary engines like you see at the top photo that only operate certain devices in the water plant, such as a booster pump or a water well. As you can see, they're all at least over 30 years old. Some of them are 40 plus years old. Parts are becoming very hard to come by. So this project replaces those and installs a natural gas or diesel, no, this will be all diesel, I'm sorry, generator at each of those water plants, which then can be connected to the electrical system and operate and have the flexibility to operate all the different components individually or in combination as we need to during a power outage, rather than be hooked into one facility device, and that's all it can operate. Water well rehabilitation projects. This is actually an ongoing program to rehabilitate our water wells. There's a master plan that was done, and I kind of gave you an image of that earlier in the presentation. But we've had these ongoing right now and in the future. But surface water is a supplementary water source. We got to keep our groundwater system in operation. So this is what that program does. We do have a set designated water wells, and you'll see it in our project plan that we plan to rehab each year. However, we do have the flexibility if a water well in our system were to have a mechanical issue, we can swap those out as needed to keep all our water wells in operation. Last project I want to highlight, and Dan will pick up a little more detail after I talk briefly, but this is the new water reclamation facility to replace wastewater facility number 1. So far, we've gone through phases 1 and 2, and that's what identified was approved by the stakeholder group to go forward with the new MBR facility. To move on to phase 3 for preliminary and final engineering, we will need MUD approval for that. But just to kind of, reiterate, this current facility does not meet TCEQ design criteria. And Dan can talk about a little bit more about that. But the land acquisition process has been approved and is currently underway. So Dan's going to talk about a little bit about schedule and impacts and hand it over to him.
All right. So I know you all have heard a lot about this project, so I'll try to be short and keep this moving. But this is something since at least December of last year, we've talked about a schedule of how we continue to move this forward. During that time, we presented that we would hopefully work up towards a supplemental agreement with the MUDs, which is a reminder, that would be with individual MUDs, not a majority with the trustees. We scheduled that for hoping for an April 2024 timeframe to be able to get those agreements in place and move forward with further design phases for this water reclamation facility. Something else, just as a reminder, we did provide a draft of that supplemental agreement to all the MUDs in the January timeframe. So this is not something new here. This is an overall schedule of kind of going through the design and construction phases, assuming we would start in April 2024 and complete and have a new wastewater treatment facility, water reclamation facility started up in fall of 2030 timeframe. Big picture here is these things don't happen overnight. This is something that is a multi-year process to design and construct. So second schedule. So this is something to where if there's significant delays on starting design and eventually construction of this project, hypothetically, we put December 2025 on here. So that would be, over a year, year and a half delay before we get approval to move forward with financing and funding for this project. That pushes construction out essentially the same amount of time, year and a half, close to 2 years. So what are the impacts of that? What are the impacts of a delay? We're constantly fighting inflation. We're constantly, fighting potential increases in costs. So what we tried to do is to put together essentially a list of everything we could think of that would need to be either rehabbed or replaced, rebuilt, if there was a significant delay to the project. So taking a step back, we've already put projects on hold. Some of those major capital expenditures for replacement of infrastructure at wastewater treatment facility 1, we've already postponed that because we don't want to have essentially sunk costs if the preferred and selected alternative moving forward is to replace the facility in its entirety. So with that and putting things on hold, whether it's replacement of all the aeration basements or just the reoccurring, replacement of the mechanical assets, that puts an operational risk on Chris and his team to be able to continue operating that plant at a desired level of service. So going back to the slide here on the left side, that left column is items that we feel would need to be addressed if construction is completed after that 2030 timeframe. So if there is any sort of significant delay to that initial schedule we presented, these are some of the items that we feel we would have to replace because the risk of continue operating or risk of failure of that equipment would be increased. So moving on to the right column, that would be if there is even more of a significant delay that pushes the completion of construction out past 2033. Those are another level of items that would need to be replaced in addition to that first column on the left. So we've already presented this presentation to the audit committee. We've presented this presentation to the trustees. There has been a question come up, what are we looking at for, magnitude of costs associated with these columns? So we've heard that, we want to work with y'all to be able to try to get you the information that's being asked across all the MUDs. At this time, we need more time to work with more than likely a consultant to help us pull together some updated pricing with any sort of certainty on the item shown here. So that's something we are continuing to discuss. If there is a significant cost associated with that of bringing in a consultant, that would typically be going back and getting approval from the trustees in order to expend additional funds that were not budgeted, that were not planned in the initial approved scope of work. So that's something else that kind of an aspect that would come in that's being discussed across the MUDs is how do we get to a level of cost estimating on this and what are the impacts on time and duration to do that, but then also additional expenditures and costs to work with a consultant to do that. So I think that's all I really wanted to say on that. I'll let Aaron finish up the last 2 slides and then we'll open it up for questions.
Right. So going back to talk about the projects that are ongoing or about to start in 25. This is a summary of the funding sources for those projects, both on the R&R side. And then also we have bond funds that are remaining from a 2017 bond that we're able to utilize to, fund about over $21 million worth of projects. So you can see the split and the funding source and the amounts for those 2 funding sources on the projects that are ongoing or about to start. For the projects that will require a new bond, and we kind of glanced over that with the water reclamation facility. Also, you have, the conveyance optimization, gravity main rehabilitations on the wastewater side, and then on the water side, it's AC water line replacements, the new ground storage tanks to replace the existing one, and the new water well. You can see roughly the cost over that 10-year period is in the magnitude about $600 million. And in summary, grand total for the entire 10-year period, you see for R&R projects, a little over $87 million worth. 2017 bonds, again, you saw it before, a little over $21 million. And then for the non-funded projects that were requiring new bonds, a little under $600 million. For grand total over that 10-year project plan period of a little over $700 million. With that, thank you. I'll open it up for me and Dan. I'll open it up for any questions right now. And if you have any in the future, you can always forward them to Eric and he'll get them to us. So, any questions?
Those numbers that you shared, that doesn't include the impact if it was delayed at all.
No, sir.
Well, that would all have a big impact on what those final numbers would be.
Correct. And of course, you got to also think about inflation and things of that nature if you push it back as well. On the new facility, it's going to cost more.
The slide you showed on the AC water lines.
The study.
Yeah. It all been approved, scheduled and everything. I mean, I think we've been talking about what's going through the town center and that section through there. Has that all been factored in there? Is that going to be first or?
Well, it's been designed. Of course, this evaluation will look at all the AC water lines in the entire system. We anticipate that town sewer water line probably will be the first one, but we got to see what the results of the study are before we, put that in stone.
We also talked about prioritizing the testing on that town center line too, because we're trying to, do a testing representative across the entire system. We did want to potentially test the town center line first, get in some additional data there to see if we need to move forward with that sooner or push that out. Continue. But right now, town center is on hold. This AC water line, the contract with HDR Engineering is who we selected. If y'all didn't know that, but that is currently on our March board, our SRA board for approval. So that April 2024 date is set in that contract as a scheduled start date. And the July 2025 is what the consultants provide us with anticipated completion date.
It's going to take a lot of scheduling with the township and everything. Be a lot of disruption through there, won't there?
I think the goal would be to minimize it and go through and try to select locations to do any sort of excavation and destructive testing sampling to where it would minimize impacts to the community and the public. So that's something early on we'll be working with the consultant is to select appropriate technologies on the non-destructive side. Where would you do that testing? Where does it make sense? And then also on the destructive side, where could we take representative samples across the system without having major community impacts?
Find locations where you can isolate a section of line and not put people out of service, things like that.
So, but you're right. In short, there's a lot of coordination with Woodlands Water Agency, township, county, etc.
Anybody have any questions?
Thank you. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. All right, item number 11, we did that. Item 12, update on the Spring Creek detention.
Actually, 11, we have not.
Oh, all right, I'm sorry.
That's all right. I need to pass them to that. Yeah, yours. Item. It's already here.
Thank you.
As we mentioned last
I
month,
have one.
you have that, you don't have that one.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. As we mentioned last month, we've been working, Adam, Brian, I, Maureen, and others have been working on a kind of a summary
as questions came about the last few months about, how are we going to fund some of these larger projects, long-term? Thought it was important that we look at some of the options, for how we might be able to do that, because the numbers are big. And it could have certain impacts, whether it's on the water bill or the tax side or whatever. So we wanted to put together kind of a summary that identified a few options. And so before you, you have this sheet is a summary and kind of a pro con of 4 different options. And then the larger sheet is actually I guess, a debt service pro forma, best way to describe it, to identify what the effects of really the projects you just saw, how that would affect on the tax side. So just to briefly, not going to read the whole pro con to you, but there's 4 options that we kind of came up with. The first one was through the retail water and sewer rates. And that would include basically SGRA selling bonds, identifying a wholesale rate necessary to cover the debt on those bonds. And then that wholesale rate would be passed through your retail customer billing. And you can kind of see there what the effect, it's slightly different for the different MUDs, but generally speaking, it would move the water bill to somewhere in the $250 range or so.
That's per month.
Per month. That's correct. That's right.
What is the average?
About 104.
No,
now.
okay.
Except
Again, this
if
is
you take-
typical bill.
If you take the top 20% and the months of June, July, August, and September, their bills are double that amount. So if a person has a $300 water bill and you increase it by 50%, they're gonna have a $450 bill every one of those months. And I'm not gonna be around then, but the MUD directors are gonna have a terrible time explaining to their top people who have swimming pools what $450 a month is a lot of money, pay for water.
It's going to be a lot of dry swimming pools, I think.
Well, and you also have to think about the Lifeline customer too, that's on fixed income, over 65, doesn't use a lot of water, that there still will be a larger bill for them as well. And that could be problematic. So it doesn't just hit the top, but it also hits everybody.
And historically, we have always had the MUDs participate by bonding at the MUD level and then repaying. And if you'll notice, we have $250,000 we still owe San Jacinto River Authority on first 2 bonds. And we paid off, as did old MUD 2. The last 2 bonds, we paid cash. And of course, if you pay cash, that takes 7% off the top when you figure your share. And that's because there's 2% for the attorneys, 2% for the financial advisors, and 3% for advanced funding until the collections pay the bonds off. So that's 7% of lost funds that go away if you have money to pay your fair share. And right now, we have enough money to pay our fair share of a $50 million bond, which is going to be their first one, I'm told.
So is this going to be presented at all the MUDs? Yeah, and the trustees?
Yes.
And the proposed action is to come back next month or just
Proposed action, want everybody to see it.
Study it and then-
study it, have comments on it, exactly. Just let me just go through the 3 options. I won't go into all the details, but just to cover what the 3 options in general are.
So the second option would be a rollback tax election, which is where the MUDs would go to the voters and get authorization or a vote to raise the M&O tax level to an amount that is necessary to cover this debt. And that's the resultant of that is indicated on the larger sheet. And so what we tried to do is point out what one of the higher months that kind of ramps up and then stays and then kind of goes down as the debt is expired or paid off. And so you can kind of see what that high mark would be for your district. As far as this is the annual additional increase in taxes. So for one, the annual would be just under $1,000 a year, not front. So less than $100 a month. 80 cents.
That's really a good option. Yeah.
It is, takes voter approval. That wouldn't probably be able to occur until November of 25, probably. So it's not the best on the timing of things, but it might be something that's more palatable for folks, for sure. Option 3 is more of a water bill situation, but instead of basing it off of usage, it'd be based off of a specific fee. So you could identify a specific fee for a resident customer versus a commercial customer. For the purposes of this example, we just used 100, 200. It could be some different variation of that. But as you can see, 100 residential, 200 commercial gets you to about 43 million a year in increased revenue. It would go a long way to cover some of this. But again, one of the cons is you've got the Lifeline customer that's going to be hit with that as well. So just something to think about. And the fourth option is really what Hartley was talking about, having each of the MUDs sell their own bonds. That would also require going back to the voters. And just in the pro forma that we've given you for the rollback, we're estimating, and this may change, about 8 bond issues. So if the MUDs do it themselves, that's 80 bond issues. And that's probably not very efficient or affordable for the issuance cost items that you mentioned. You're going to pay higher issuance costs across 80 bond apps or issues. So anything I missed?
Well, thank you for giving
Yeah,
us
thanks,
that
sir.
option about putting it in our maintenance tax. And is that, can we do that?
You would have to have an election, you have to have a rollback election, and so it would take voter education, which something of this magnitude you want to do anyway. But I think our recommendation to the boards would be, if we go that route, go and get the maximum rate that you would need, not incrementally and have 7 different rollback elections, but have one for y'all's district at the 2106 plus your current tax rate of 0695. So whatever that total number there is, probably about 28 cents roughly, and get approval for that full rate. And so then you would have that as your new starting point for future calculations of the rollback rate.
Yeah, and we really don't need, our MUD doesn't need to add 2 cents because we're already 2 cents above what we need to operate.
Yeah, that would be for the board to decide when you went for a rollback election. One thing we have talked about a little bit is one of the benefits you may have in time besides avoiding multiple elections by going to that maximum necessary rate is you would be able to set aside in a separate fund, if you'd like, these additional maintenance tax revenues before they would necessarily be needed by the River Authority, which would give some districts potentially the ability to opt out of.
We already have it.
Either opt out of a tranche of bonds or reduce the amount of participation that you would have to, or the amount of bonds that the River Authority would have to issue, which would lower issuance costs and interest costs, et cetera. So you basically set that maintenance tax money aside. It would accrue interest over time. And then you could use that either to pay for your pro rata share of a tranche of bonds, or if you had gathered enough in excess of a particular debt service necessary for a tranche, you could potentially, buy out, best case scenario, or buy down your participation in a particular tranche of bonds. That's the thought. Now, we have to do more analysis as we got closer to a particular bond issue to see what that would ultimately look like. But that option is there because you would be levying the maximum maintenance tax necessary for ultimate debt service before that debt service would ultimately be incurred.
Is this that option?
Yes,
The rollback.
Yeah, so you're saying we'd have to raise ours
by 21 cents above.
by 2 cents,
No, 21.
21 cents
21 cents.
from roughly 7 cents now
Yeah,
to
well,
21 cents.
that's very doable, because interest rates are low. When I got on the board, we were 14.5% at 94%, at 94 cents.
Well, for matter of comparison, look at option one versus this and option three versus this. So option one, if it's $148 a month increase is what Eric's saying, that's $1,776 per year, that 148 times 12 versus 971. If you own a house that's the average homestead value. Now, it's less or more than your, incremental increase would vary, but that's a good amount lower. And then the flat rate option that Eric's got on option number 3 for residential, notice that total revenue per year is 43 million. So that's not times 10 years, that's 430. That's not enough. You're going to be about 170 million short of what they're showing at about 600 million necessary. So this doesn't get you all the way there. But even at that number, that's 100 a month, that's $1,200 a year for a residence versus.
That's
$971.
average residents.
Correct.
And if you go to Old Mud 2, how many of those, what percentage has swimming pools?
Pretty high percentage, plus
Over 50%.
plus big lawns too.
Yeah, and big lawns, and, our mud really was have a problem if we put it in the water and sewer rates.
Oh, yeah.
All of it.
There's no easy answer. We've said that multiple times.
Yeah, no
You have
easy
to-
answer, that's right.
Because frankly, you're having to go sell to your residents a tax increase of whatever that.
And I would also say if you put it into the water and sewer rates, people have some control over that and they're going to either not fill their pool or they'll stop irrigating their lawns in order to, because the price is prohibitive. And so we could fall short of getting the money we need.
It's true.
Or if you have a lot of big rainy year, people's water bills will go down.
That's true.
Where option 2 with a rollback, that's money certain. However, that is a fixed cost and it's independent of the water usage and it's based on the value of the home. So that may change the fairness of the distribution of paying for the bond because people with expensive properties are going to bear a bigger share. And yet their water consumption may not be any higher or maybe lower than some other people. So another argument is they can probably best afford it, the people with $1 million homes. So it's
No easy answer.
I think
you're
we're
right.
missing the point here, though, whether a person's got a swimming pool or $1 million home. I think we're missing the point of how it impacts the majority of the people out there. And especially like Eric said, people that are on fixed income
Yeah.
or, retired, not everybody who has a pool. So that should not even be a factor, but so this is something we need to study, come back and.
What I would ask is that as you digest it, send us comments. If you think there's pros and cons, additional pros and cons, let us know. We're happy to add that. We want to be as informational as we possibly can because this is not a simple task to.
And
Are
we
we
want
looking
all
at a
the
time
months to
frame?
do the same. if we have a rollback, it's gotta be
Correct.
all the muds. That's the difference.
Should, yes, it should be.
If we have a
Can't guarantee that.
rollback, we gotta have all the muds roll back at the same
Okay.
time.
Yes,
And as the general manager tell you, we got a couple muds that got a real problem right now in the reserves.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that we pay professionals handsomely to give us recommendations.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And I'll be looking
Appreciate
forward to
this.
the recommendations of our professionals.
But the voter approval doesn't affect the timeline of the project, does it?
well, yeah, it does.
So it'll push it back.
It would.
Okay.
It would. Now, they've got to run estimates to their consultant on what items would have to be done off their 2 columns of list there, if the timing was pushed out. So we don't know yet what that trade-off cost would be.
I think the official request at the table from Esther, if I'm not mistaken, is the request is to approve a first tranche to get the engineering rolling so that it's not delayed. That doesn't necessarily obligate you to the construction, but it does kind of put things in motion. Just because you do that in one manner, maybe through the rates, doesn't mean you couldn't do the bigger portion in a rollback or however you want to handle it. But that's also officially been asked at the moment. There's not.
Yeah, and San Jacinto River Authority is going to sell that bond for this initial, its construction. Was that about a $50 million bond?
40, I think we're looking at. 40?
40 million, okay? And that's gonna happen one way or the other, because we
Well,
don't have time.
It's got to be approved by the districts. They don't.
Yes, I understand.
Okay. Thank you, Eric. Appreciate it. All right, now 12, I received an update on Spring Creek detentions. Dan?
So not a whole much to update. I talked to our division manager, Matt Barrett. He said, let me know that there was a funding partner discussion to move forward with the remaining scope of work for the consultant. So the consultant is out there now doing some additional environmental, geotech, dam design, and some additional hydraulic modeling under some conditions of historic storm. So once that's ready to present, there'll be future updates for y'all. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Any comments? All right. Item 13, attorney's report.
No general items today.
All right, thank you. Item 14.
14, drought contingency water conservation. We're still working with the consultant and the river authority to update those, so we'll be deferring that until next month. It has to be approved next month, so it can be submitted by the May 1st deadline. So
May
this will roll
1st
to next month.
Okay.
And do our new directors know where they can see the policy number RNS 35?
It's on the Google Doc.
It's on the computer.
All right, item 15, consider adoption of the resolution concerning development district tax 2024.
Yeah.
2024.
So y'all got in your packet there, the documentation for this year's developed district status determination. LGA did confirm that this year the district will remain a developed district and subject to a 3.5% rollback rate, where you have an automatic election. You're aware of that from previous year's discussions. This will come into play when you're setting your tax rate in September, October of this year.
I move approval of the adoption of the resolution.
Is there a second? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, item 16, funding for the One Water task.
I want to put this on the agenda because meetings that Eric, I, Walt, and Bob Lux, is there anybody else? And we talked about having a part-time consultant to assist in the work and the function of the One Water task force, because there's insufficient time for volunteers to do the work, nor do I think there's enough expertise among the volunteers. And so funding a part-time consultant, we would hire either one or maybe more than one expert to assist us. And I look back at the failure of the original task force, it did nothing more than just meet and talk and talk and meet. And if the task force is going to be effective, it has to have more teeth to do it. So that's why we recommended that we get an expert to work with us on the task force. And that expert too can also provide a very valuable input into what the task force should do.
Could a director be a consultant on this? Because Jim Stinson is now a director. Don Sarich is now a director. And the lady who's in one of the MUDs, who is former San Jacinto River Authority, is also a director.
I don't see why not.
And, you know, I suppose either one, any one of those three,
They would.
two of them retired,
Yeah.
would be wonderful because they have complete knowledge of the
Yeah.
system.
And that's a legal question.
Yeah, I'm thinking about that. I'll have to give that some more thought. I do have some
Yeah.
concern about that.
Well, I don't think we have to be worried about that now, but
No,
that's
but
good.
it's, you know, I think that's good, and there are people around it. We wouldn't have to train them.
Yeah.
If you go out and hire a consultant that doesn't understand the system, it's very expensive.
Isn't this something that the Board of Trustees should vote on? And if so, could we make a motion that we authorize our trustee to just say, or to give approval for $5,000 from MUD 1?
If you so choose, I think it probably,
Is that all right?
from a overall WWA standpoint, I think it probably needs to be a consolidated effort amongst all the MUDs.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But to get the Board of Trustees to vote on it, but authorize him as representative for MUD 1, that we authorize him to go up to $5,000 and to contribute to the fund of hiring a person to lead the One Water Task Force, the consultant.
Yeah, this item is just a discussion, not action, but I think, you know, I don't think there's an issue with giving direction to your trustee to bring the issue up for discussion and what the discussion's been at this board, and start that at the trustee level.
Right, and then if it does come back, then we put it on the agenda that we vote on it.
Correct,
Okay.
correct. And then I'll need to think a little bit more about a director, because there are conflict of interest statutes regarding the prohibition on directors being consultants of the district. So I think that we could have a problem there. I'll go back and double check the language, but I think that would potentially be a problem on a director being hired as a consultant.
Okay.
And we used to have people who were directors in one MUD, and then they would consult with all the other MUDs except their own.
Correct.
And
That's
they
different.
were able to do that
Okay, so there's no action taken on this one.
anyway.
No, to add to that comment, I was gonna add to my general manager, but since there's an item there, just wanted to update you that I'll be sending in, so as you know, I drafted a letter identifying some goals. We've had some preliminary discussion with the township on that. We've cleaned it up and revised it, and I've issued a final draft to the township, which is what they were needing to bring it back to their board to get this thing rolling. So that's kind of their, I mean, last year they voted to agree to move forward, but kind of waiting for more movement, and now's the movement. So just want to let you know that letter will be going out, and I'll be sending that to you all.
And I also feel that some of the MUDs will not be interested because they don't have a flooding or a drainage problem. So, well, just like the Spring Creek study, only 5 MUDs participated in that study, and I'm guessing that may be the only same 5 MUDs that are willing to pony up some money. And some MUDs just don't have the money, like MUD 36.
47, 49.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Eric. Can we move on up 17 in the general manager's report?
Sure, just wanted to update you on a few things. I attended and Bob did as well, the Gulf Coast Water Conservation Symposium a few weeks ago. It was a good event. Identified some things that actually we're doing already, so that was nice. George's Coffee, I made a presentation with Esther yesterday morning to the George's Coffee Club. I think that went pretty well. Basically just went over essentially what Woodlands Water is, what the MUDs do, our responsibility, Central River Authority, what we do, what they do. And then talked a little bit about the incoming infrastructure renewal that's before us. So
It's an excellent job.
I think it was well received.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great job you did.
Thank you. There was a question that was raised that I said I'd bring up in my report. There's some interest in possibly adding to the water bill some information about the election. Just identifying the date and that it's coming. And so I'm just going to open that up for discussion if possible.
Well, historically, when we've had a contested election, we have put out with the water bills a flyer saying election, it'll be held here because we used to have it held here. And people weren't used to that because it wasn't a special or general election run by the county. But this time we have 7 people running, and what we had done when we held the elections here, on the ballot, we had we had a indication of who was the incumbents. And you can't do that on the ballots when the county runs it. And so one way to have people recognize who are incumbents is to send out a flyer saying, got election, we got these 7 people. And then you indicate who the incumbents are on that flyer and where early voting is. And I know that old MUD 40 is all in precinct 48, and I don't know if all of MUD 2 is in one precinct now.
I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, they've made a lot of changes in the precinct since I've been involved.
Is there any problem doing that?
As long as it's informational, and as far as what Hartley described there, I don't see anything that veers out of the information lane into advocacy.
Do you need to approve it or look at it before it goes in there? Just to
I
make
think
sure.
that's how we have typically done it. Eric would work to prepare that. I think generally for a district that asks for it or across the MUDs, and I would typically want to be able to take a look at it just to make sure that there's nothing in it that's advocacy. I mean, you've got a great
No
staff
advocacy.
here.
Is that something we need to make a motion on?
Oh, go ahead. I have another question on that.
This is receive and interact. This is part of the general manager's report. I would think you would go ahead and get direction to your GM to issue that, yes.
Okay. All right, I make a motion then that we allow a flyer to be put in the bills that show the candidates and who the incumbents are, subject to approval by the attorney on the final document.
And so real quick to clarify, is it something that you want a separate insert or for us to use the back of the bill where we often, every month we utilize that space to push out some sort of.
Well, I think it's easiest since it's MUD particular to put it in the billings.
Well, they
Like
both
we
get
did the-
Billing envelope, but do you want it actually on the bill sheet, which on the back, there's a,
No.
no.
I think a
Well,
separate
like
sheet
our
would be
annual
more.
report was last bill is what I would recommend.
Yeah, I was just asking clarification.
I think a separate sheet would be,
Then they can
More
tear it out,
visible.
and take it to the polls with them.
good. No motions or a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Aye. Any opposed? Did you vote, Hartley?
Yes, I did.
No, okay.
All right, one other thing, just wanted to point out, WWA was the recipient of an award that will be presented to us at a upcoming conference. The AWWA Water Environment and AWWA and Water Environment Association of Texas has given us an award for, the award is called the Watermark Award for Communications Excellence. And so we applied for that over the last few months, and we were selected as the winner of that for our strategic communication plan of 2023 and how we went about it last year.
We can thank John for that.
Absolutely.
Well, the whole PEC.
Yeah. Go ahead. With that, I'll pass it.
Morning. Let's see, page 48 is your communications report. Brief one for you this month, I promise. I did want to give you some stats on the annual update that went out last month. So of your 2,500 plus accounts, we sent out emails, about 1,000 opened that email, looked at the report. So that's almost 40% of your total accounts. Remember, we don't have everybody on an email list. We have just under 70% of your accounts on email. So it's good that you also did the bill stuffer too. That way we get some overlap because not everybody gets a hard copy bill either. About 70% of your folks get a hard copy bill. So we don't know how many of those folks looked at it, but we do know that your page views, your web page visitation nearly tripled since those reports went out. So folks, we have every indication that folks were looking at that. They wanted it, and that drove further interest in MUD. So some more positive stats here for you. As you well know, WaterSmart is probably our #1 customer support tool. It is a primary focus of ours to continue to ramp up registration. We're right around 40% of all accounts are now registered with WaterSmart. Encouragingly, we've seen monthly registrations go from 170 a month on average, that was last year, to almost double that at 333 a month since the beginning of the year. The main driver behind that is now folks can do their payments through WaterSmart, one-stop shop. So that's really helping to drive folks to WaterSmart. That's a good thing. We expect that to continue throughout the year because by the end of the year, you have to be paying through WaterSmart. I'm not sure the exact date on that, but towards the end of the year. So we expect those registrations to continue to rise, and we'll certainly leverage that, use that tool effectively as folks register. So beyond that, just examples of current marketing that's out. And then our outreach calendar there on page 50, you can see what we've been doing last month or so, and then some upcoming events, including a big one at the township on the 13th. That's the emergency preparedness event. If you want to come out and talk with folks, that's a good opportunity, that one on April 13th at the township. And I guess just to end with a question for you, did you want to stuff that election information in this upcoming April, March bill, or do you want it to go out in the April bill that will go out?
It's got to
the
be
end of
in the
April?
next bill because the election's early in May.
Yeah, so this coming bill.
Yeah.
Okay, we can get that done.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for John?
Yeah. How much money are we going to save since the Woodlands magazine is only going to be every other month now?
Well, and we're not advertising anymore. It's a different business model. The township is assuming all costs on that. So So we won't have an ad in there because there are no advertisements going forward.
You're not gonna put ads in it anymore?
Well, they're not accepting ads. It's information only. So we will continue to have our regular monthly article. But that ad was coming in around $1,600-1,700 a month. So we'll put that money elsewhere.
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
Eric, everything else?
No, I did not.
All right. Trustees report on 18. Harley, have anything?
Nothing to add.
Okay,
We went through the same San Jacinto River Authority report that we had here.
all right, item 19, recess in the closed session. We have nothing to discuss. Item 20, reconvene. Item 21, discuss any matters to be placed on future agenda. Anybody have anything they want to put on? Okay. Before we adjourn, we had a resident sign up. Can I go back to, does this fall under item number 3 or item number 4? Right?
Well, that'll be depending on Mike, is the resident here to speak about the account that you were talking about earlier? All right, so this is number 4.
So we can discuss. Okay, because there's 3 open. Okay,
Correct.
thank you. Sir, you'd like to address the board? Yes, sir.
I'm on.
Yes, can we have your name and address, please?
Coming out with the board. I've experienced very unusual situation with a leak in my front yard. Couple 3 months ago, and the water leaked for several weeks. And it became a mystery leak because the water was on my side of the meter. And I kept on checking with the customer service, the water company. And there was no unusual, on the meter, there was no unusual water flow. But the 3 to 4 gallons per minute water was flowing out. And this happened in December, January, in a couple of at least for a couple of months or so. So apparently I had no choice but to, I was told that I had no choice but to fix the leak, and because it was on my side of the meter. So it was in the front yard. So I incurred the cost of finding the leak. And then I found out the water was not from my meter, it was water from the water company's water that was going through my yard. And nobody knew why this water line was, 1-inch line was on my side of the meter, in my front yard. Somebody told me that this water line was going to the back of the house. Somebody told me that this water was going to the next neighbor's house. So that wasn't the case. I talked to Mr. Edwards, and he explained to me that there was the water from the water company's line was somehow in a cul-de-sac. It goes through the company's water that was going through my yard. So anyways, I incurred the cost of fixing the leak, finding the leak. It would take 3-4 days. So I incurred the cost, and I then submitted the bill for reimbursement, and it was denied. So Mr. Mooney suggested that I come and talk to the board and explain to them that to reconsider the decision of the reimbursing the cost. I did incur the cost because even if you have found that out that the water company would have to pay to fix the leak, and I had somebody to fix the leak. So I'm here to just request a reconsideration of the decision to the reimbursement.
Did you request anyone from Woodlands Water to come out and look at this situation before you undertook having?
Several times here, they say if it's on your side of the meter, it's your problem. So you got to figure it out. I didn't ask anybody to come, but people did come, and they had no idea why this water was leaking, why the line was in the front yard. So, and now the leak is fixed. So Final.
When you, when you discovered the leak was on our side of the meter, at that point, who made the decision to go ahead and fix it at your, you made the decision to go ahead and fix the leak on our side of the meter, is that correct?
Not your side of the meter, it was on my side. As the water was leaking in my yard and on my side of the meter,
No.
house.
I'd like to hear your view. You went out and,
I did not personally go out, but Tony went out. And we got the call after they had dug up the water line and said that there's a 1-inch line that was leaking and it wasn't from his sprinkler system. And then when Tony went out there and checked on it, and it was a 1-inch service line that's actually feeding the next door neighbor
It's on our.
to their meter, but it's our service line coming from the main to the meter.
It wasn't going through his meter. So when the customer called and wanted to know if he had high usage, we told him no, because it wasn't on his side of the meter.
and we have the resources on our staff to have fixed the leak without,
We did fix
We
the
fixed
leak.
the leak.
yeah.
We did fix the leak.
No,
After we were called out there, Tony went out there and met with the homeowner after they found the leak, knowing that it wasn't his line. That's when we determined it was our service line, and we got a crew out there to fix it.
Anything to do with his sprinkler system is on his side.
Right.
It's private.
Yeah.
It's off of a private water.
Private water well.
I guess the question that I have, once you saw that it was, you called Woodlands Water to see if there was high usage, and we said no, that there wasn't. And then you undertook the task of having someone come out and start digging around to try to find where this leak was. Okay, so then, but you never asked us to come out and look at the leak at all, correct?
no, because I was told if it is on your side, it's your problem.
Okay.
So there's no point in asking somebody to come and take a look.
Who told you it was on your side?
I mean,
Who told you that the leak was on your side?
the customer service.
We told him there was no leak on the house meter side.
He has no sprinkler meter.
He's not tied to our system for the sprinkler, so if there is an irrigation leak,
There was.
it won't be metered, and we have no way of knowing that.
Right.
And since it's a private water well that's used for irrigation, it's up to the homeowner's responsibility to figure out if there's an issue on the sprinkler system itself.
And again, what was the request for reimbursement?
$12,380.
$12,000?
Yes.
Well, I'm trying to determine why we should pay for that. Why should we be responsible for that?
Who will be responsible for fixing the leak, finding the leak? I had to find the leak. I had to spend the money to find the leak. So it was because it was messing up my yard, messing up the water, and I had no choice but to find the leak. And I was told I had this, my side of the meter is my problem. I had to do it. And then it turned out that the water was not mine, but water was yours. Water company's water.
Well, since we've already acted on this twice, but we now have the presentation by the homeowner, I would recommend that we add it to the agenda next month
Okay.
for another reconsideration. Is there any comment on that?
I
Is it
would agree.
possible for us to go out for a site visit? Since we're talking about that much money.
What?
Yeah, we could go out and visit the site and,
Would you
Yeah, well-
allow one of us to come out and look at it?
Absolutely. Sure.
yeah, I would agree with Hartley to put it back on the agenda.
Put on the agenda for reconsideration next month. We've already acted on it twice and disapproved it, but with your additional information, I think we ought to investigate further.
That's fine. Appreciate that. Thank you.
We need a motion on that?
Not to put it
No,
on
you
the
just, it's an
agenda.
agenda item. We're gonna add it as agenda item next month. reconsideration.
Can you coordinate setting up a visit or can you coordinate with Woodlands Water so one of us could come out and look at it and you could show us exactly what happened?
Okay, that's fine. Several people have already been there. This is Tony, there was another gentleman who came over there, and they had no idea where the line was.
Yeah, $12,000 seems like somebody was certainly believing their efforts were very valuable. $12,000 to find a water leak is a lot of money.
It is. Finding the leak was not that easy. It's 5-6 feet deep, and also there were all bushes, and there was a lot of shrubs over there.
Yeah,
So it was not easy to find it. It was not an hour or 2 hour job to find the leak.
well, we have to get more information and we will reconsider it next month. And you're going to go inspect
I have no
along with our
problem if somebody
people.
wants to go with me. Okay, yeah, myself and Angela will go up. And we'll coordinate the timing. Okay,
Appreciate it.
all right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, item 22, do I have a motion and a second to adjourn?
I make the motion to adjourn.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Have a good week. Good